All right, it's about time for us to begin our class this morning. We are in the book of Ecclesiastes, and really happy to have this opportunity to go over that. I will remind you, I did have a handout from the Bible Project, Ecclesiastes. We saw that last week. Does anybody not have it and would like to get it? Jenny would like one, and I'll get you. She just wants me to be close to her. Oh, mercy. It's always good when Jenny's in class. She keeps me honest. Keeps me straight. If that is possible. I don't even know if that's possible. My question always has been, who keeps her straight? Yeah. I love Charles. He's just so honest. All right. We're in Ecclesiastes. And again, we're looking at what I'm going to say Solomon. We don't know for sure if it was Solomon. He was a son of David, he says in verse 1. He was the king of Jerusalem. Sounds like him. Verse 12 says, I, the preacher, have been king over Israel in Jerusalem. It just sounds like very Solomonish. We're just kind of following this pattern, and we got down to really we're in this slot here. The madness. Call this the madness. Well, why do we call it the madness? Well, life is just madness. It's just, there's so many things about it. A lot of it just, it makes sense in it, but in reality, sometimes, and I like to think of this passage as somewhat like when you're living in life and all of a sudden you find yourself glancing out the window and you say, I feel like a mouse on one of those wheels, just moving forward. And the more I move forward, the more the wheel's there, type thing. It's like, what am I on this? Why am I doing this type thing? The problem is that people find too much meaning in their stuff. Now, you can say this when you're hundreds of miles away from the storm, but you hope that when people go through the kind of devastation some people are going through today, that somehow, some way, they find their way to God, that they find the connection with God and try to find meaning that would allow them to say, my life's not about things. My life is about relationship with God. And so, I go back to what Gary was teaching and these guys in Ukraine to say, there's this, we have to understand what the world's for. I remember when I was in a philosophy class, our teacher asked the question, is this the best of all possible worlds? Could there have been a better world? Could God, if God is there, and we believe He is, if God is there, couldn't He have made something better than what He made? Well, you get to the end of Genesis chapter 1, He said it was all good. Everything was good. What happened? Sin came into the world. And when sin came to the world, this world got on a roller coaster ride that leads to destruction. Even the planet, Colossians 1:17 says, by Him all things are held together. One of these days, He's just going to quit holding it together. And when it happens, it's just going to fall apart. The world's going to be destroyed, 2 Peter 3:10. it's going to be destroyed. And so what's the important thing for a person in life? Is it about getting stuff? Is it about, well, will I have a good day today? Will this be a good day? Well, good days are good to have. It's nice to have. But what is good? What does happy mean? Well, somebody says, well, happy means I'm going to be happy when I go in there and get my belly full of that good food the sisters and brothers have put together. That's going to make me happy type thing. Well, if that's all it takes you to make you happy, what's going to happen in about 3 hours? Are you going to be sad? I mean, sometimes we look at the things and we say, I got to have this thing, I got to have that thing. Boy, you know, Apple has captured the feasts, the hunger of the world, at least in the iPhone business. People say, well, if I can get this iPhone. Well, you're going to have the 14. Well, you got to have the 15. Well, you got to have the 16. And 16's out now, you got to have that 16. You know, I am not going to be able to sleep until I get the 16. And to me, that sounds so empty. It sounds so foolish. Because at the end of the day, what does he say here in verse 3? What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? What do you gain? Well, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. They're not even yours. They're the parents. They're themselves. They grow up and they become their own people. At the end of the day, all we have is God. It's all that's important. If you don't have God, you don't have anything. I don't care how wealthy you are. If you watch any news, you think about these people that are rich. I'm going to mention here in a little while my lesson in the afternoon about P. Diddy. You know, I am not a rapper fan at all, but P. Diddy he's been in the news so much over the years. Who doesn't know this guy? Well, you're going to have to get internet, boy, where you live. They have internet out there in Allensville. Well, I tell you what, you will survive. There you go. Well, you got cows, and hey, that's all you do. You know, he's a wealthy guy, but not right now. Sean what? Combs. Yeah, the black fella. Yeah, it's on TV. Yeah, well, they sure do. Yeah, PD, really pity is what they call him right now. At the end of the day, what the point I was trying to make was, the point is what Jesus said in the long ago. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul type thing? And I have a prayer for P. Diddy and all the other P. Diddies in the world that they find Jesus. Because that's their riches. That's their hope. So, I think I mentioned last week, I think when he says you can't gain all, you toil and you're constant. What's it for? What does man gain? Well, it's just stuff. Verse 4 says, a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Is that a true statement? What were we just talking about? God's going to destroy the earth. So do we have a verse in the Bible that's not true? Or do we have a verse in the Bible that spells out how men perceive the world to be. And I think that's what's going on here. This is this literature here is part of what is called the poetic literature of the Bible. Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. There are some proverbs that are there that, when you hear them, you think, well, okay, well, it's not a guarantee type thing, all of them. But generally, when you look at the world around you, this is kind of how it is. And so this is a perception verse. When he says a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever, I think we sell ourselves at that that's the way that it is. I think that's how the majority of the world feels. It's just going to be here forever. And so what is a good way to prove it? That we feel like the world's going to be here forever.
That's the way people live. I mean, truthfully, if people really, really believed in hell, they would not live like they're living.
Right. If they believed in hell, they wouldn't live like they're living.
They don't really believe it.
Right.
Some of them think
Yeah, you'll hear some people say.
come back to this earth after they die. I mean, all these weird
Yeah, crazy ideas. A lot of them. But I think it is easy for us to invest in the earth and in the world around us. Sometimes you'll hear people say, well, I want to be able to bequeath my offspring with my wealth. Type thing. And people work their whole lives to try to get millions of dollars so they got somebody to leave it to. And never mind how they treat it or what they're going to do, but it's like we do sometimes get the false impression that we're investing in a world that by its nature is not going, that we think is going to be forever. How many of us have relatives who are buried in a cemetery and there is a marker in that cemetery? Well, there's a lot of reasons why you'd have a marker. Jenny and I bought markers not long ago. We got markers in the cemetery. What are we stating? Well, I want my name to last longer. I want people to remember me. And there's nothing wrong with remembering. It's just all I'm using is an example of how we invest in the earth. We invest in the beyond our lives. Because we have this general feeling in our brain that the earth's just going to go on and on. When in reality, if you sat down and thought about it, what's going to happen in 100 years, 500 years? What's going to happen in 1,000 years? Do you think our grave markers are going to be seen in 1,000 years? Or, if the Lord comes again, what would it matter? Type thing. What'd she say? That was expensive. That was an expensive contribution to the future. So, a generation goes, generation comes, but the earth remains forever. So that's how I perceive it. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens, mine says hastens, to the place where it rises. Does somebody have something different than hastens? There is an alternative rendering of it in the original language that says returns panting. You know how when you're at the end of a race, you're panting? This passage is saying, the sun rises, sun goes down. It just seems like the sun comes back so fast that it's like it's just worn itself out to get back to you. Now, to me, I read that and I go, well, that means I've had a good night's sleep. I don't get that all the time, and so it might be a little bit longer for folks. But here again, don't get lost in the verbiage. It's just simply saying life goes on. Life just keeps going on. And that's how we perceive it. The fact that we say that the sun rises. Sun don't rise. What happens? the earth turns. Yeah, I mean, we're the one that's going around, but it's the perception of the world. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north, and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. Well, I would say the Bible explains hurricanes in this passage. Is that the point he's trying to make? What's he trying to say here? What happens in life?
He's saying there's things that are not in our control.
Yeah, okay. Things that are beyond our control.
But it goes on, and we have a pattern of life that we depend on, but we can't control it. It's going to do.
Okay, I think that is a great way of looking at it. We're not in control of the world around us. We're objects who are witnessing this. What I was thinking about was that he's saying essentially what goes around comes around. What we send around, it's like the wind of the earth. It goes to the north and the south and it comes back again, type thing. And the nature of the world in which we live, and even of our own doing, is that what we do comes back to us. All streams run to the sea, but the sea's not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. How do they do that? Well, we know that process of how things dry up, goes up in the sky, atmosphere, clouds are formed, and the water comes back down again, type thing. And it fills the streams, and it can be devastating sometimes, like some of our folks are experiencing. But it's interesting how the ocean doesn't fill up. Yes, sir.
Scott, that's just like people going generations going back and forth.
Yeah. Generations can be that way. Life's that way, type thing. And it says something to me about how ultimate change is really beyond my capability. I can change myself. I can try to change the world. I can influence the world. But ultimately, life has a way of repeating itself, I am a lover of history. I loved history. But you know what my most favorite thing about history is? It's not just finding out the bits and pieces. What I love most about history is that you learn from the mistakes of people who lived before you when you study history, and you learn how not to repeat it. We're raising a generation of people who have just no interest in any kind of history at all. And that is a generation that doesn't give much thought to the failures of their predecessors. And so therefore they don't have the benefit of learning from the mistakes of their ancestors. I love Ancestry.com. I've got an account. I love to research it. I like to read about who my father's father and father, all the way back, as far back as I can go. I like to do that. It's interesting to me. But at the end of the day, I want to know about their lives. Did they know God? Did they serve Him? Did they put their trust in Him? Yes, sir.
It's just like it is now. It's repeating itself. These gun seers, he just keeps going. He's doing back in the older days, killing people and all that.
Yeah.
It's just coming back to us.
This Jew thing, it's been going on for 1,000 years. It's all kind of Jews and
Yep.
Ukraine, Jerusalem,
Problems in the Hamas and the Jews. Yeah, I mean, there's,
Hitler. I mean, it's been going on forever.
yeah, long time before Hitler.
I don't understand why so many people over centuries is all the time fighting the Jews. They don't seem to be doing that, but they all hate them. I mean, whether it's the Iranians or
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not a Jew fan, but it seems like that they are always being harassed somewhere or another, but they seem to be kind of peaceful.
Well, everybody's valuable in the eye of God. Everybody, the Jew, the Gentile, everyone in the world. And we need to be fans of people and want the very best for people. I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I did not realize that. Okay. Well, I know that there's a desperate need of help. I get requests from India. I know they're not Jews, but they ask for help, and there are a lot of people who are in desperate need, and Jewish people, obviously. There are some Jewish people that are in desperate need. So, yeah, it's a challenge for people all around the world in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, what we're actually saying here is we're living in a world that has the appearance of being a certain way that may or may not be the case. And so all things, verse 8, are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. So what's he talking about there? Well, there in verse 9 or verse 8, he says the eye is not satisfied with seeing. What does he mean by that? Can we ever see enough? I like that. You know, we sing that song to the little kids, oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Why do we say that? Why do we want them to know that song? Because you can't unsee. Like you said, you can't unsee things that you see. And we ask for God to protect little eyes. We need to protect ourselves. But there is a mindset within us that makes us want to see more. Sometimes I will, when I go to bed, I'll sit there and I'll look at YouTube not YouTube, but Facebook has a video side, and they just play videos, just short video clips. And it's like, if you watch them very long, you can be there for hours watching these videos. And it's like sometimes you're looking and you're like, and you know, we can do that with our television. We can do that with our newspaper or with the internet. You know, there's so many things that can get us so caught up with things we want to see. Well, let me just see this. Let me just see that. So I think that's what he's speaking to. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, the ear filled with hearing. Can you fill an ear with hearing? I don't think you can fill it. Now, you can make it pretty loud. You can make it so loud you put your finger in your ear, try to stop it. But I don't think that's what he's talking about. Can a person hear enough? You know, the Bible talks about busybodies. What are busybodies? They go from A to B everywhere doing what? They want to hear things. They want to hear what you said, where they can say what you said to somebody else. They never get enough hearing. Well, the truth is, we're all kind of that way. We just want to hear, well, we'll just hear a little bit more. I'll tell you when we want to hear the most is when we can't hear at all. And I'm finding that's more of a problem for me the older I get. Ask Jenny. Said Jenny. So, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be. What does that say? Well, some things are just never going to change. That's just the way things are. What's happening is the way it's going to be. Well, now, there are going to be things that change, but by and large, the world is the way we're going to live, we're going to die. How can you explain to a child that they will never die when you know your experience is just as, well, they say the two things that what are the two certain things? Death and taxes. You're going to pay taxes to somebody, but you're going to die. That's the world that you live in. So what has happened, what has, will be. And what has been done is what will be done. Well, that's not specifically everything. We do learn from our mistakes, and we can stop. We have organizations like AA that will their job is a 12-step program to help alcoholics. And we've got other type programs that do the same thing. Why? Because we believe we can help ourselves do better. I don't think he's talking about that here in this passage. He's talking about the way the world is. What's happened is happened. What has been done will be done. Another way of looking at it is we're just going to repeat. History repeats itself. And again, that's why we need to learn. And there's nothing new under the sun. Well, you're going to hear him say that a lot. Nothing new under the sun. I've experienced this, I've experienced that, I've experienced this, I've gone through that, give this long, and he's going to do that in Ecclesiastes. And he's going to come back and say, there's nothing new. Have you ever thought a new thought? I mean, a thought that's never been thought. I'm not talking about new thought to you. I'm talking about thought something that's never, ever been thought. I guarantee you haven't. You haven't. Why? Because it's the nature of the world. There's nothing new under the sun. Now, some people come up with good ideas and invent new things and do great things, but the reality is there's nothing new in the sun. So, I remember when I was in preacher school, training school, we had a teacher it was in a preparation delivery class. Basil Overton was the preacher. I don't know if did y'all ever remember Basil Overton? He preached a lot in West Kentucky. Brother Overton was my teacher and teaching us how to preach, and he would often say, "Now, fellas, if you're putting your sermon together and you come up with something you never read anywhere, if you come up with something you're going to share with the brethren that you've never, ever seen in print anywhere," he said, "let me give you some advice. Move on to other topics." He says, because when you start telling people, you're going to have to do some retracting. Why? Well, the nature of the world is nothing new under the sun. And so chances are, if I think up something new that the Bible says, I better check my sources, basically, before I say. I wish I could tell you that I have never failed at taking that advice. And Jenny can tell you that's not true. Because there have been a lot of times I've had to eat crow because I said things. I've said things in here, and I've gone, why did I say that? Or later on I had to come back and say, well, I went down that lane and I really didn't think it through. So, I mean, it happens to us, but we just need to learn that's how the world is. And it reminds us not to take too much stock in the things of the world. So, is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? Verse 10. It's already been in the ages before us. That's why you need to know history. That way you can learn a lot of these things before you embarrass yourself. Verse 11, there's no remembrance of former things. I've been told that if you write a book, that's the best way for you to be remembered. So, I would suggest to you that that may add some generations to your knowledge. I mentioned Edward Gibbon this morning. What did he write? Yeah, Rise and Fall, or Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. He'll be remembered probably for a long, 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 long time. But ultimately, he'll be forgotten too, because the books will go away. I mean, they said Egypt had a great, great library that would have been, surpassed all libraries, Library of Congress type thing. Where is it? We just don't, the nature of the world is nothing lasts forever. Well, the internet's going to be here forever, and it's okay whether it is or not. It's not a problem. No, it's certainly not for me, because my trust is in the Lord. Don't get me wrong, I got concerns about it, and everybody's got their concerns about it. We want it to, our banking system, our nations, our military. I mean, there's so many things that depend on the internet today. Scary how much depends on the internet today. But what happens? There's no remembrance of former things. Well, that's not saying we don't remember former things. It's just that's the way people generally are. Nor will there be any remembrance. Ultimately, we'll be forgotten. Of later things yet to be among those who come after. So it's here again repeating the nature of the world. So the preacher have been king over Israel in Jerusalem. Verse 13, I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. Let me stop there. Isn't that kind of the way we do in life? Don't we seek to find out what life has to offer? Aren't we taught to dream? Aren't we taught to imagine? Imagination of a child. You guys over here at the Russellville Christian School, you're teaching these children, impressionable children, to imagine. And they got games and things that they do to learn and understand. And Jenny comes home and just bragging on kids that learn how to repeat their address, and their phone number and things like that. We praise that kind of thing. What we have in the writer here, or what we have in the preacher, is to say, well, I did that too, except I did it to the extreme of my capabilities. He's a rich man. He was able to experience a lot of things I will never, ever, a lot of things I never dream of experiencing. He's experienced it all. And he's telling us that that's what his purpose was in writing this message here. I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. And then he says, it's an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. So God's made us all. He's given us this ability to dream. But really, at the end of the day, it is a trap, isn't it? It's a trap. You learn everything there is to know in the world, to have everything there is to world, and still lose your soul. I mean, then what good have you got? Oh, if I could just win a lottery, and people just sell their souls out and destroy their families with gambling and drugs and all these various different artificial things that they think once I get into this, that's going to give me happiness. Well, Solomon's tried it all. And he's like, man, it's really an unhappy task God's put on us, because it, where does it end? Yeah.
I think it's, he said in Ephesians 3:11, God has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put
Do you say Ephesians or Ecclesiastes?
Ecclesiastes, sorry.
I said that a while ago. I threw you off track. Ecclesiastes.
He's made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he's put eternity into man's heart.
I love that.
So he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I think it's talking about we have a sense of eternity, of Godness in us. God breathed, and we are God's image, but we're finite and human,
We're limited.
and we're limited.
Yeah.
And it's that limited but wanting to reach
Oh, yeah.
God.
I think that's why we want to go to the moon in 69,
I think that's why Ecclesiastes sounds so confusing. It's all this scurrying around trying to reach God, but without Jesus yet.
He's kind of given us a picture of what the Tower of Babel looks like in life. That's a new thought. It just popped in my head and I said it. Well, what did God say to the people that were building that tower? There's nothing that they won't be able to accomplish if they set their mind to it. See, he's given us this mind that we can do this thing, but he's wanting us to use our time rather than trying to understand the wisdom of the ages, understand him. Or at least understand him in light of it. Yeah.
Never trying to reach God physically.
Yeah.
You can't reach God physically. You have to reach God on his terms.
That's right. That's right. Let me read 2 or 3 more verses. We'll finish the chapter here. He says, I've seen everything. I've seen everything that's done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and striving after wind. I've seen it, I've done it, I participate in it, and everything is striving after the wind. In other words, nothing he sees, nothing he experiences lasts. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. So in other words, there's no cure in fixing what's broken, and you can't right what is wrong. He said, I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, verse 16, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me. Very Solomonish, right? And my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. In other words, there's no better judge in the world than me. He said, and I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness. There's our word, madness. And folly, waste of time, foolishness. He said, I perceive that this also is but a striving after the wind. Even the wisdom and the folly that's in the world is really a waste of time in the long run type thing. No amount of knowledge is going to change anything. World's going to go just like it's gone. He says, for in such much wisdom is much vexation. The more you know, the more it hurts. And he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. Isn't that the truth?
But Scott, do you have any idea, as Solomon truly did write this,
We don't.
when it was written? Any idea?
We would think that it was probably in the latter days of his life, because that would have been what it would have taken to experience all that he experienced in life, and then be able to come back and say, finally, keep God, love God and keep his commandments, which is the whole of man. That's in chapter 12. That's going to be the conclusion. I've tried it all, I've done it all, it didn't work. And I'm telling you, don't waste your time. Find God, fear Him, love Him, obey Him, and see the world through those glasses. And it's going to you'll make you happier. And make you happier. I have got chapter 2 here. So our time is gone. I hope everybody's planning to stay and eat some food. There you go. I don't know if it rang or not. It should have. Boy, you got good ears. You heard it.